Are you ready for another day in the month of Deadlift? Sorry for the cheesy intro. I'm just pumped. It's my favorite month, Deadlift, the celebration of all things deadlift. Today we're going to talk about equipment. Now, before I go any further, you can absolutely get by with minimal equipment. A barbell and plates is all you need to improve your deadlift. What I'm going to tell you today is what I would have you get if you came to me and said, Ryan, money is no object. I just want to improve my deadlift. That's my only goal in life. What do I need? What are all the tools that I need for my trade? First step, okay, actually, before I go any further, the most important tip, the most important piece of equipment you need is at the end of the video. So stay and watch to the end. Or be a schmuck and just fast forward to the very end. But nevertheless, what you need to hear most in the video is the last piece of equipment. First and foremost, we're going to talk about the barbell though. A barbell is important. Yes, you can make progress on a crappy bar, but it's best if you had a good piece of equipment. It's going to last you longer. It's going to be safer for you. Okay, it's dangerous to be lifting with a bent bar or one that has crappy grip. You have a couple choices here. The Lamborghini choice for bars is the Eleiko IPF powerlifting bar, competition bar, in my opinion. I think there's hands down no better bar to deadlift with. A Texas Power Bar, if you're on a budget, is fantastic though, and it's going to cost you about a third the price of an Eleiko barbell. Other options, an Oki deadlift bar is fantastic, very grippy, has a real gritty knurling. And then Rogue Fitness makes some decent barbells for deadlifting as well. Any of those options will work. Some bars are stiffer with a little less aggressive knurling. Other bars are super whippy or bendy, which may suit your style of deadlift. So the bottom line is you're going to have to try these out if you want the perfect bar, but those are my top recommendations. To review, Eleiko IPF competition deadlift bar, Texas Power Bar, Oki deadlift bar, and one of the Rogue barbells. The Bergener bar is great because it's good for Olympic lifts as well as power lifts. Okay, moving on. Next step is the footwear. Most powerlifters will tell you you want to be as low to the ground as possible. Even a 2-inch elevation in a shoe, in the height of the sole of the shoe, means you have to pull the bar 2 inches further. Doesn't sound like much, but when you're talking world records and personal bests, it does make a difference. My preferred option is to just pull in socks. I do that when I'm here in the Viper Pit because the floor is not slippery and because it's my own gym. Some gyms may not allow you to do that, and also if you deadlift on a wood platform where it's slick, it's not a good idea to deadlift in socks. So your next option, if you prefer being that low to the ground, is deadlift slippers. A lot of companies make them. Metal comes to mind. You can find them on the Elite FTS website. But they're basically socks that are grippy on the bottom so you don't slip. Now none of these offer toe protection for if you drop a plate on them, but just be careful. Next option that you have here is Converse Chuck Taylors. Chuck T's are a staple in the powerlifting world, popularized probably mostly by Louis Simmons and the Westside Barbell Club. They do have a slight elevation, but the benefit is it's a flat sole and they're not really that compressible. It's a fairly hard sole, so it's a decent option. What you do not want to pull in is a standard like running shoe or a cushion shoe that has a compression. That compression is going to mean you're unstable, and you don't want to be unstable when you're pulling a deadlift. Now the powerlifting purists might crush me on this one, and I don't care, it's fine. Another option you have is an Olympic weightlifting shoe. Weightlifting shoe has a couple benefits. One, it's a very hard sole. In this case, this is a wood sole, so there's zero compression whatsoever. It gives you a nice stable base to pull from. Another option is they usually have some type of arch support, which can be beneficial for lifting. In fact, I was talking to my chiropractor the other day, and he is a meathead, he loves to lift, and he saw a research study where they compared deadlifts using orthotic arch support versus no arch support, like more of a Chuck Taylor shoe. And the research showed that the orthotic group, even though the elevation was a little bit higher than a flat sole, they activated their glutes, hamstrings, posterior chain to a much greater degree, and we're able to lift more. So proper foot position is critical, and a lot of weightlifting shoes have a good arch support. Another thing that they do, there is a slope, so the heel is higher than the toe, so there's an elevation in the heel. This is going to make your shins go forward a little bit more, which is going to put more stress on your quadriceps. Some people Again, it's very individual, but some people actually, their technique is a little bit better when they have a slightly elevated heel. Usually it's the longer femored lifters do better with an elevated heel, or if you have really tight hips. Also, if you deadlift to improve your Olympic pulls, your cleans, your snatches, you want that to mimic more what you do in those classical lifts, so you want to lift with the shoe. It's also good for variation, mixing it up, different motor unit recruitment pattern. I personally use Olympic shoes if I'm doing snatch grip deadlifts because it helps me get in a better position. It's a good option to have. Again, bottom line is you want a hard sole, you want something flat, relatively low to the ground if you can. The next piece of equipment that you should have in your gym bag is straps. I've talked about how to use them in their application, but just a quick review. They're good to have, even if you compete in powerlifting. It's a good idea to have some so you can do some overloads like rack pulls, or if you're doing a high volume deadlift workout and after a bunch of sets, your hands just get fatigued and you need some extra help from the straps. They're good to have in the gym bag. You can also do heavy accessory work with them, like heavy barbell shrugs, heavy rows, that kind of thing. Good tool to have in the bag. The next thing that we're going to talk about is chalk. For anyone that's ever deadlifted hard, it's kind of a no-brainer. If you can't hold onto the barbell because your hands are sweaty, deadlift's not going to do you much good. You won't be able to go very heavy. So I always recommend you have some chalk. If your gym doesn't allow chalk, there's some companies that make liquid chalk, which is a product you just put on your hands, rub it together, and it gets real tacky and it helps you grip, but it doesn't leave a white powder mess on the floor. If you're going to use chalk in a gym, don't be a chalk douchebag. What I mean by that, put the chalk on your hands, don't make a freaking mess, and do your work. Don't be one of those that lathers up, claps it, LeBron James style, before your deadlift. That's just showing off. It doesn't do anything for you. Be modest, put some chalk on your hands, get the job done, don't make a mess. Sorry, that was a rant there. Next piece of equipment is a belt. This is a powerlifting belt. I believe this is a 13 millimeter belt. What you'll notice about this belt is it's uniform length all the way around. So the belts that are real thick in the back, like 8 inches tall in the back, and then on the sides and the front they're real skinny, those don't really do much for you. A belt, the reason it helps you is because it increases your ability to produce intra-abdominal pressure. So before you deadlift, you're going to have the belt on, and you're actually going to be taking a deep belly breath through your diaphragm. So the belly should expand out 360 degrees, the shoulders should stay down, you shouldn't be breathing through your neck. And you're going to breathe into your belt and then brace like you're about to take a punch in the gut. You will be able to achieve a higher intra-abdominal pressure with a belt than without it. What does high intra-abdominal pressure do? It stabilizes the spine. So it's important to keep you safe, but more importantly, well, not more importantly, it's important to keep you safe, that's the most important. But next most importantly is it helps you lift more weight. So you're going to get a greater load on your back, your hamstrings, your glutes. Now, I can already feel it. I can already feel the 16, 17-year-old keyboard warriors coming at me from their mommy's basement. It never ceases to amaze me. You'll see a video on YouTube or Instagram of a world record powerlifter doing a great deadlift with a belt, and some schmuck that probably can't even deadlift 120 pounds goes, he's using a belt, not very functional for your core, he's going to have weak abs, blah, blah, blah. Cut the noise. First of all, if you look at EMG studies on lifting with a belt versus without a belt, you actually get greater abdominal activation with a belt. Now, where it falls apart is you don't use a belt in day-to-day life activities. So if you always lift with a belt and the time comes to help your in-laws move their couch and you go down and you don't have a belt on, you could hurt yourself because your brain is not used to the recruitment pattern without the belt. So where does that leave us on a belt? My stance personally is I think you should use it sometimes, but not all the time. How I use it, first of all, I will always warm up without a belt. So I'll build up and get as heavy as I can in my warm-up sets before I start to throw a belt on. And that's in a belted phase. Other times I will waive my phases so that sometimes I'm using a belt, sometimes I'm not. So in a 12-week block that's designed to improve my deadlift, the first 2 phases, or the first 8 weeks, I may lift without a belt, and then I'll throw a belt on for the last 4 weeks on my heaviest sets. And that allows you to get a good blend of both belted and unbelted lifting so that you're both exposing your back and your hamstrings and glutes to heavier loads, and you're also training the brain to be able to recruit your abs when you don't have a belt on and have a strong abdominal wall, etc. Okay, that's enough about the belt. Keyboard warriors, don't be mad at me. I hope I explained myself well enough. Next tool that's good to have in your toolbox is chains. These are not little tiny chains. These are heavy, heavy chains, 5/8 of an inch. I think they each weigh about 20 or 30 pounds. If you can get even bigger, that's great. One of the things you'll notice, when you put the chains on the bar, they should be split in the middle. So either with a carabiner, so if you look, this carabiner cuts the chain exactly in half, or draping the chains over the barbell. I've seen a lot of people doing the one long chain dangling from the barbell, and I'm here to tell you that is next to worthless. It's improper. It's not going to give you the same effect as doubling the chain over. And we'll talk about that more. I've got a whole day in Deadlift dedicated to chain deadlifts, and we'll talk about it then. If you're going to have chains, you can drape them over the bar, but I actually prefer to use a chain loader. This is from the company Elite FTS, www.elitefts.com. This company, the CEO is Dave Tate. He's a man with a ton of integrity. He's given so much to the industry, and their equipment is top notch. My power rack is made by them. I got all my bars from them practically, and it's just a great company. EliteFTS.com, Sorenex.com, and Rogue Fitness are three great equipment manufacturers if you need to get some stuff for your own personal space. These chain loaders are great because they help you load the chains on the bar and they won't slide off. If you just drape them over, they could slide. So these are good to have with you in your gym bag or in your home gym. The next thing we'll talk about, one of my favorites, bands for deadlift. Again, just like with the chains, I've got a whole day dedicated to teaching you about deadlifts with bands, but I just want to point out they're good to have. I have a ton of them. I've got short, skinny ones. I've got really fat shorties, really short and fat. If you've ever tried to pull against a band this thick, you're gonna know it's freaking brutal. It's very, very hard to do. You probably need to pull in excess of 600 pounds to be able to do anything with this, maybe even more. I've also got some long bands, so there's an application for these as well. If you've got the funds, get a blend. Get some thin ones, get some thick ones, short, long. They're all good to have in your gym bag. Next thing, baby powder. All right, this isn't a huge deal, but if you compete, it's going to be important. The bar when you deadlift should always stay glued to your body. You're basically dragging it up the front of your body from the very, very start. So if you have hairy legs or even just skin by itself, that creates friction on the barbell. Friction will enable you to pull a little bit less. So you could be leaving a few pounds on the platform if you're not using baby powder. What you do, simply take the baby powder, coat the front of your thighs with it or anywhere that the barbell is going to touch, and it's going to help the barbell glide smoother up that body part. Again, it's not super essential. I don't really use it except maybe at the very, very end of a cycle. It's not a huge deal for me, but if you do compete and you plan on setting PRs in the platform, then go ahead and use it. Now, don't use the baby powder on your hands. It'll make your hands more slippery. And conversely, don't use chalk on your thighs or your body. It's going to create more friction. So baby powder for where you want the bar to go smooth, chalk for where you want the bar to be tacky. Then we have here shin protection. These are metal deadlift socks. I've seen lots of versions of these. I've seen deadlift socks. I've seen elastic like compression sleeves that you can put on your shins. I've seen some people that use their knee sleeves and just pull them down over their shins. The reason is because deadlifting can leave you with some pretty gnarly shins. Again, you're dragging that barbell up the front of your body, so the barbell, depending on how sharp the knurling is or if there's any smooth part in it, it can cut the front of your shins. It's totally fine if you're man enough to take it. I've got permanent scars on both shins from deadlifts, but the gym that I train at when I'm not training in the Viper Pit is a hardcore gym. There's two pit bulls that roam freely in the gym. There's UFC fighters, there's world-class powerlifters, world-class IFBB pro bodybuilders there. It's a serious, serious gym. It's got a ton of old school equipment, like all the old Nautilus stuff, all the Perillo stuff. Huge gym, lots of different barbells, but it's not like the clean, sparkly, shiny gym. Some of the barbells are rusted. You actually probably should get a tetanus shot before you go to this gym because it's just a hardcore grunge gym. The last thing you want to be doing is pulling a rusty ass bar into an open cut on your shin. So some shin protection is good. Word of caution, I just use pants most of the time, to be honest. Most of the time when I deadlift anymore, if I have any open cuts, I'll just wear pants or my deadlift socks. But it doesn't bother me to have beat up shins either, personally. If you choose this option, if you want to go with some shin protection, make sure you double check with the federation that you compete in, if you compete, to make sure it's all legal. I know with powerlifting these days, there's a million different federations, a million different sets of rules. So make sure you check and see what you can use with that. And the last, here we are, the very end. The most important piece of equipment you can have in your gym for improving your deadlift is this. What is this, you ask? This is a bottle of Man the Up. Deadlifts are brutally hard. If you don't have an aggressive attitude, an aggressive mentality, and a crazy positive psychological disposition about deadlifts, you're never going to improve them, and you won't be able to use that tool to improve your body. They are not easy. They're not fun. A lot of times they'll tear up your hands, they'll tear up your shins. There's nothing like leaving a big patch of skin on the barbell, bleeding everywhere. But that's okay, because that's the step you have to take to be a badass sometimes. So make sure you have this Man the Up every time you are in the gym. Or woman the up. I'm Coach Ryan Family from the Viper Pit. I'll see you tomorrow for another edition of Deaduary. Talk to you soon.